Welcome back to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio. We're super excited to be with you. It's Scott and Paris in the studio today. Shane couldn't make it. He had some family or business or other things that he had to attend to, but he'll be back again soon. We miss him, and we're excited to be able to chat with you today and share with you some ideas. Today, we're going to talk about what kind of prepper are you? The different kinds of preppers out there, from and the range of doomsday preppers all the way down to the casual prepper and everything in between. So we're excited to maybe share some funny things and make this episode a little lighter and a little more fun. But before we do that, I just want to remind you guys to go to our website at preppertalkradio.com. We're revamping it. We've got some great new things there. Make sure you click on the resources and download any resources we have. Give us your email list so that you stay in touch with us. In case anything goes down, we'll still have access to each other through email. Also, double check Jase Medical for your medical supplies, for your antibiotic supplies. They will give you the Jase case. Well, pardon me, you have to purchase it. But if you order the Jase case and use the Prepper code, the code Prepper Talk, you'll get $10 off, and you'll have your emergency supply of antibiotics. And they give you sufficient antibiotics to cover most of the stuff. In fact, we did an episode, maybe 5-10 episodes ago, where we talked with Jase Medical's CEO and founder, and that was an excellent one. If you haven't watched that or listened to that one, go back and listen to that one. I think that'll be a good one for you to listen to. And we also have the Ready Summit. The Ready Summit is something that we support. We are actually one of the sponsors for that. It's a online courses where you can learn skills to be able to be prepared and be ready. There's subject matter experts in each of the categories of preparedness that you would want to learn about, that are there showing you the skill set so that you can become more prepared and more ready-minded. So super excited. If you use the code Prepper Talk at both of those, Jase Medical and at the Ready Summit, you get to have a significant discount. So thank you again. That really supports the show, keeps us going, and we really appreciate any support you can give us that way. But Scott, what do you think? We're going to talk about the ranges of types of preppers today. This is going to be fun.
The spectrum of prep, as I call it. It's a wide variety, and it goes from like the super survivalist.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a bunker. They also call them the Doomsday preppers, right?
Yeah.
To like, then you've got like the bushcrafter segments, and they're more about being one with nature, primitive tools and skills, and it's phenomenal, right? And this isn't like in order across the spectrum. This is just like different groups within the whole world of prepping, right? You've got your diehard preppers. You've got your gun hard preppers. You've got your homesteaders. You've got your community or communal living groups. And they're all different types of preppers, right? Then you've got your casual, like you can, and everything in between. And I'm more of your kind of in between. Like I'm more of your practical prepper kind of guy. Like I want to have my home store. I want to have as many skills as I possibly can, because I believe there's going to be a need to rebuild, and that together we're going to have to come together and do that, to fix that, to rebuild. And the more we can do that, the more skills we can acquire, the better off we're all going to be. And, I don't have to be an expert in one area. I'm a jack of all trades. I love being a jack of all trades. I used to think it was a bad thing, but now I'm like, wow, I can do so many different things. And it helps to know more about things. It helps even more to know how to fix things and how to do things. And I'm really working right now on my gardening. So I'm kind of like moving into the homesteading style of prepping, but I would still say I'm very much a practical prepper. I would love to move off grid. There's even the off gridders, and there's even the minimalist preppers that are just like, I've got my go bag, and it's like, not just I'm getting out of town. I'm getting out of the world. Like I'm disappearing into the wild. And most people call that an inch bag, and that's in case I'm never coming home, or I'm never coming home. And so I'm like, I don't know what in case I'm never coming home spells, but anyways, that's a bad acronym. Inch is the right acronym. I'm never coming home. But there's so many different ways you can do prepping, and some people they just do food storage. Other people, they're really, really into the full homestead. There's some people that have like, I have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, like every letter of the alphabet, they've got a plan all the way through. And it's really interesting to see as you get to know people kind of where they fall on the spectrum. Cause like, yeah, there are crazies in the world of prepping, but they're so hard to find. Like it's true. They're just so hard to find. And the Doomsday Preppers show, in my opinion, tried to paint preppers to look a little crazy. And everyone I've talked to that's been on that show, they're like, yeah, they really tried to get us to focus on just this one area. And that's really not what we care about. Like, that's not what we're worried about, but that's what they made us do.
That's
So
crazy.
I'm like, interesting. So what are you really preparing for?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just don't want to lose my job, or I'm more worried about like supply chain. And I'm like, fast forward to today, and all the things that everyone's worrying about and everything that we're dealing with are all the things that most preppers have been worried about for decades.
Yeah.
And it's still funny because people are like, what are you prepping for? Nothing bad's going to happen. And now they're like, never mind. I retract my previous statement. What do I do? How do I get involved? How do I prepare?
Mm-hmm. If you called your conspiracy theorist friend a fool, you owe him an apology at this point, right?
Right. And you need to call them and say, I'm sorry. And then say, what's next? Because they probably know.
Yeah, that reminds me of that funny video podcast we did where we brought oh, goodness sakes, what's the famous Joe Rogan, where we had that Joe Rogan clip where we talked about how the preppers of the days of Noah, how he knew ahead of time that the flood was ready. He must have been a prepper and been ready for it. And that's just, when I first started my prepper journey, I was, a suburban dad. I had a job. I had my career. I have a business. And so I thought, I don't want to be hardcore where I'm super obvious. I kind of want to stay blended into the community and just build where I'm, kind of just slowly build and be the guy who lives next door to everybody else. But you never know. He's got, a 500-gallon water tank in his garage. He's got, guns and ammo, and he's got a couple, whatever, 6, 7 months, 8 months a year of food storage. I just want to be that guy that blended in. And so my first initial idea in really helping people understand that was that the preppers aren't about being this crazy gun toting, ammo building, bunker, whatever, although that's something that maybe down the road you can get into. But everyday, average, ordinary, everyday citizens of America and anywhere in the world where you are, being prepared is just being ready for whatever life throws at you, just having the skills, having enough food that you don't need to worry about whether or not there's a run on toilet paper because you already got plenty, or whether you've got, you lose your job and you need to have some food to eat for the next month until you find a new job. Just everyday things that being ready and being prepared. I grew up as a Boy Scout, and the motto is be prepared. And so it just kind of fit. It just made sense to me that no matter who you are or what level of skills you have right now, there's some foundational things you can do to be ready and be prepared. Emergency fund for money, food, water, and then maybe get some skills where you can defend yourself, safety, security, and build from there. And then, if you want to go crazy and go off grid, if you want to get the bunker and get 15 ARs and 35 shotguns and 14, 55. I watched this guy, his family, I don't know where they are or where they live, I can't remember, but he had guns laid out on his deck. Like every inch of his back deck, and it was a big back deck, was filled with all kinds of guns. In fact, the guy, when I zoomed in, I was like, what is that one back there? I zoomed in, it was a bazooka. The dude had a bazooka in his gun collection as part of his preps. Now, I don't know that you need a bazooka, but heck, why not? If you've got everything else squared away, you got your food, your water, your skills, and you want to buy a bazooka, more power to you.
Right. And if the government has it, I think we should be able to have it too.
Yeah.
I kind of want to get a couple cannons. Will I ever use them? No, but how cool would it be to have those on your front porch, reminding people, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Like I want to be the grouchy old guy sometimes, but I'm too kind and too friendly to really do that.
Right.
But it's like, what if? But yeah, it's like,
that's funny.
You could really go a million different directions with prepping, and getting off grid would be ideal for some, but not for others, right? Some of us really like being suburban or urban, and there's different ways to plan and prepare and focus. But you have to, no matter where you are on the spectrum, you have to always exercise caution, because you can get sucked into prepping and go down crazy rabbit holes and be like, I have to get all this stuff. And then you feel crazy for a little while. And then once you pull back a little bit, you're like, oh, what do I really need?
Yeah.
And it's that common sense stuff that makes all the difference. Knowledge and skills, first aid training, those things, and I'm talking general knowledge and skills, like understanding what you actually need for food storage, understanding what you actually need to prepare and preserve your foods,
Mm-hmm.
understanding what you actually need for communications, whether it's a grid down scenario, whatever the scenario could be, whether there's an invasion, whether I lost my job,
Yeah.
whether I'm disabled, or my wife, or one of my kids. There's so many different applications of what ifs. It's simple, standard practices that go the farthest and make you the most resilient. And that's what we're really trying to help people become, is resilient, or the other word for it is anti-fragile. So
Yeah.
that when things fall apart, it's not the end of the world for you and your
Mm-hmm.
family. Like, that's why insurance is so valuable, right? Life insurance, accident insurance, auto insurance, homeowners or renters insurance. Like, preserve the things that are most important to you.
Yep. Protect.
And my favorite insurance policy is my food storage. It's the best insurance policy I've ever owned.
Mm-hmm.
And I put a little bit more money towards it when I have the money. When I have coupons, I use those. But it's like, those are the things that do the best long term over everything else.
Yeah. I have a friend that it's funny because you talk, going back to what you were saying about, you go out, you buy all the gear, and then you realize, wait a minute, I didn't really need all this gear. When I first got my 72-hour, 96-hour pack, I have this, it's a huge backpack. It's got all the tactical webbing, and it's got a belt thing and shoulder straps, and I got the water thing that goes in it just was decked out, right? Military grade, whatever. And my buddy, who is actually a military guy, and he's like, Paris, I can tell you where I served, but I'd have to kill you. I'm like, don't tell me where you served, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's been in countries I can't pronounce, stuff like that, doing work for people. And he went through my bag. He's like, you don't need this, you don't need this. He's like, you know what I carry? He pulls out a fanny pack.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's all he has. Because, well, when you have the skill sets and you can compensate, you can find things in your environment to take the place of things that you don't have or didn't bring,
Yep.
because you can find things and you can use things and do things. And I'm not sure what the exact word is, but you can, if you don't have it, you can find something that will do the job good enough that you can get the job done. And that's a skill that I was like, you know what? If I don't need to have this big old bag, I need to learn how to look at my surroundings, figure out what I can do with them, and then use what I have and what I can find. But have some basic things, like, there are some basic things like a knife, maybe a saw, some rope, some clothing, there are some basic things that you should have.
Yeah.
But you can survive for a really long time without having all the gear for days.
Oh yeah. And like, so I'm a big proponent of the get home bag. And for a long time, it was a fanny pack. And my wife laughed at me because she's like, "What is that?" I'm like, "It's my get home bag." And she's like, "You're what?
Oh,
I'm
that's
like,
funny.
"My get home bag." And it's bigger now because now we have my wife and my kids, and we're most of the time in the same car together. So I'm like, we need more stuff. So I've got an actual backpack in there, and I've got more stuff. But the reality is that most scenarios we won't need to use that bag.
Yeah.
Most scenarios we'll use our car kit, which is flares, fix a flat, like all this other stuff, jumper cables, all the stuff you need to fix minor inconveniences on your travels. But it's funny because like I don't think I'll ever build another inch bag. My old survival bag was more like an inch bag than anything else when I was single. And it was mostly because it was my get home bag, but get home to Colorado to my parents and shelter with them.
Yeah.
And I was living in Arizona at the time. So I'm like, I'm going to need all this crap. I had triplicate in filters. I had 2 big water bottles. I had a camel pack. I had very little as far as shelter, but I had fire starters. I had all kinds of stuff that I would need more for wilderness survival than anything else. And I'm like, honestly,
survival.
Could I get through the Arizona desert? Probably not.
Wow.
Probably not. I didn't have the skills. And I don't think I do still. I can get through for a little while, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many things you've got to look at and say, is it really realistic? Can I really travel 700 miles? Can I really travel that far on foot and do it in a backpack's time worth?
Mm-hmm.
Without skills, you're not really going to go very far.
That's true.
Buna Tomalina in our Facebook group, but also she's been on the podcast a few times. Every time I make a comment, I'm like, yeah, there's really not enough stuff around here to eat, foraging. She's like, actually, there is. Let me show you. Almost every time she hits my comment with, let me show you. We need to go out. I need to show you more. And I'm like, yeah, but like year round? And she's like, okay, true, not year round. But right now there's a ton of food.
Wow.
If you learn to forage, there's a ton of food in your backyard. Like,
keep yourself alive at least,
Yeah. And it's fantastic because that skill set is way more valuable than anything else. I mean, Shane and I wrote a book called The Ready Radius. We just need to get it published. But it's all about that idea of only what you need, because you can improvise and reuse anything that's around you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to get you to the next radius or the next circle, like my backpack or what's in my pockets, right? And then what's in my backpack or what's in my office or where am I right now? What's in this room that I can use?
Yeah.
To get me to the next place that I'm going, or to get me to a more safe structure, a better shelter, or with my family. And it's using those things in that radius. Then you get a new radius that you go to and expanding that radius, and you may pick up a few tools. And one of the things we found is like, we do a lot better with a half empty or a half full bug out bag. Our kit bags, like mine, are never full anymore. I've got space. Why? Because I'm going to acquire stuff along the way.
Good point.
And I've also may be discarding stuff along the way as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have near as much stuff in there as I used to. When I first started prepping, I had this huge, and you can see our downloads, we have the huge full lists, but I put that there because you might need some, not all of this, but you might need some things and not other things, but you need to look through the list and say, okay, what makes the most sense for my plan and for my situation? And do I really need that? And I'm like, most lists are so exhaustive and extensive. And you're like, do I need a saw? Do I need a saw? Like, where am I going?
Mm-hmm.
Most likely you don't need a saw. But if you're going somewhere where you do need a saw, then absolutely pack a saw.
Yeah.
Do I need a water filter? Yes, every time.
Yeah.
Do I need a fire solution? Yes, every time.
Mm-hmm. No matter where you go, those are the things you need.
Yeah. It's like, what do I specifically need? And then what do my wife and kids need? And make sure the needs are always in there. That Maslow's hierarchy of needs, always in there. Shelter, water, food are the first most basic, in your first aid. Then you start expanding past that, and you're like, okay, we'll put some crayons and a coloring book, because the kids might need something to keep busy for a while, because we'll have to sit and wait for something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And your blankets and your shelters, like, then you can start expanding. But you look at the whole spectrum of prep, and it's like, it comes back to the same core principles of knowledge and skills outperform everything wherever you are on the spectrum.
Yeah. And being creative with stuff, because you never know, like, you might have a skill set in one area, but having the capacity to creatively think gets you the ability to see something that's totally out of its normal place, maybe, but use it to create something to get you where you need to go, or what get you what you need. I mean, people make fun of rednecks, but man, rednecks are the best at jimmy rigging stuff and getting stuff to work. When you're like, how does that even work? I don't know. I just kind of did this and put that in here and put that here. And before I knew it, I started it up and it runs, and, you're like, wow, dude, that's actually pretty ingenious. And you're like, do you have a degree in this? You're like, no, I'm just, a guy back in the woods doing my thing, it's
I need a solution, and so I'm making one. Like, they just come up,
they're creative.
That didn't work. Let's try this. I mean, how many rednecks are making, moonshine, and then using that moonshine to power generators,
right?
Making their own fuel. Like, there's so many, like, I hear so many things, and it's like, there's things like, have you seen the trucks where they'll actually, trucks and cars that they'll take and cut off the gas line, and they'll put this aerator gas can in the front of the vehicle, and they've got tubes that come in through the airflow, that bubble the fuel. There's only a gallon of fuel in this like 3 to 5 gallon container. And then the fumes of that fuel come back into the car and go directly in and run the car off the fumes instead of off the liquid.
Wow.
And they're getting higher gas mileage. And then I've even seen guys take and add to that a on-demand hydrogen on-demand system where they've got water and they've got Epsom salt, and then they've got the little metal plates, and it's connected to their alternator. So when the car turns on and the alternator starts charging again, it turns this on, and now they're getting increased fuel efficiency and with hydrogen on demand. And I'm like, and every one of them that's like killing it are rednecks.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, wow. And you can do amazing things when you start trying. Like when people really realize, hey, I can do more than I currently can. You just have to get out of your comfort zone and start doing it. And that's where you win every time. It's like, yeah, are you going to be good at it right off the bat? No.
Mm-mm.
You know, ask any person that's mastered a craft. Were they perfect the first time they tried it?
No way.
You know, every violinist, I'm sure the first time they played sounded like they were killing a dog, like everybody. But the ones that stick to it become masterful, and it's beautiful. And the same thing in prepping. Like when you first start out, it's gonna be a hodgepodge. It's gonna be like the paper mache blew up in your house. Like you're like, what did I just do? What did I just get into? And you're gonna make mistakes, and then you learn from that. And pick whatever path of prep you want to go down. But keep at it, because there's joy in it. There's hope in it. There's peace in it. And that is hard to find anywhere else.
Yeah, there's true. You know, when your uncertainty is one of the biggest things that we fear as human beings. And so when something's going wrong and we don't have anything available to us, that's kind of a mental game too. When you have an emergency hit, and you're looking around to find a solution to save yourself from that emergency, whether it's loss of a job, whether it's loss of a loved one, whether it's an accident, maybe a car accident you've had, something physical, earthquake, flood, whatever, something, genuine emergencies, you're going to look for solutions. How do I get back to normal? How do I get back to homeostasis? And if you don't have the skill sets to give you the confidence to say, you know what, I know this sucks. I'm going to embrace the suck, so to speak, as the military says, but I'm going to find a solution. I know I can find a solution. I have the creativity to figure this out. And when you have the creativity and the confidence to figure things out, that puts you in a mental state where I don't know what the multiplication is, but you're multiple times more effective, and your survival rate increases by multiples, exponentially increases, because you have the belief system that you can get out of it. Most people who fail or die in an emergency are people who lose hope. They have no creativity. They can't see a solution. They just focus in on the problem, and they just shrink and they die, and they end up just being stuck. Anyways, go ahead.
Do you remember that there's a study where they took a rat and they dropped it into a bucket or a pool of water? And like right as it was about to drown, it was like 20, 30 minutes in, right as it's about to drown, they pull it out. And then they put it back in. After it's like recovered, they put it back in. And it was like, never had like it just kept going.
Oh yeah. Well, like 10 times longer or something like that.
Yeah. Like, I can't even remember how many times longer, but it was like, the study was basically to show that like, they wanted to see first of all what would happen. And then the realization is like, okay, let's kind of chop this up and see what the implications are. If you think that you're just, seconds away from someone saving you, you can go a lot farther than you can if you're like, I'm by myself, this is the end of it. Right. As soon as you think that there's this, like a way out, it's easier to keep going.
Yeah.
Right. And you're just like, I got this.
Well, that's true at the gym.
Someone's going to save me.
That's true for me at the gym. When I know I have a spotter or somebody who's going to catch the weight in case I can't, I'll do another rep. I'm shaking to get the one up, and boy, if I know somebody's there to take it from me, it won't hurt me or handle it. Let's try another one, And so that's a true principle. That's
where the growth happens. The big growth, like especially in the gym, you used to be a bodybuilder guy, like, the real growth and the real strength happens after the last rep when you can't do it anymore.
Yep.
when you have to get help and you're forced to finish 2 more.
Go to failure.
Yeah. And it's like anything beyond that initial failure is where you're going to have the most like massive benefit from. And the same thing happens in prepping. It's like if you fail and give up and quit, oh, we don't have enough food storage, or oh, my freezer just died on me the other day. Well, it didn't die, that got unplugged. I didn't catch it. It was out for like 3 or 4 days.
Dang.
And I lost so much food. Do I give up? No. I clean it up. I get rid of this fish smell. I disinfect the whole thing. Like I had ground beef and fish. I didn't even know we had fish in there. I ate it. Like, and then all the stuff that went bad, I'm like, oh crap.
Mm-hmm.
But there was still stuff at the top that I'm like, hey, this is actually still good. We can save this. We can save that. But I'm like, we lost probably 50, 60% of what was in there.
Dang.
And actually more than that, probably 80% of what was in there is gone. But it's like, thankfully, it wasn't that full to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Unusually, it was a little emptier than usual. But if I give up, what good will that serve me and my family?
Yeah.
Right now, I've learned, okay, I can do something. There's alarms you can put on your plug so that if the power goes out, there's also temperature alarms you can put on. So if the temperature drops, you'll get notified. Like you can have things go directly to your phone. It's amazing. I'm like, I shared my problem with my prepper friends, and some of them are like, hey, here's what I do now. I'm like, that's brilliant. I don't have to check it every day. Because now I'm checking it morning and night. I'm like, is it on? Is it plugged in? Are the plugs in? Okay, is the power good? Is the switch on? Is the GFCI? Like, what's going on? Is it okay? And it's like, simplify. And you can put in a little alarm on there. And it lets you know, hey, it's not working. Oh,
and that
cool.
really speaks to community. Like in order for you to actually go to failure and have somebody there to be your spotter, you need to have somebody there being your spotter. You need to have a community so that you can fall back on, a community you can trust. And that rat learned that he could trust somebody in the water. So that's where that trust comes in. That's where independent people can work together with other independent people in an interdependent way, where I can do what I can do. And if I'm called upon to do whatever, I know I can do it because I have the skills to do it. But I don't have to do it because I trust somebody else in the community to do it at that moment. But if that person failed or didn't show up, I can still get it done. And that's what independence is you have the skills to get the job done that needs to be done. And then interdependence is working with other people just like that, so that you can focus on what you're doing. They can focus on what they're doing, and you get way more done because you have people that are helping you and working together to get more done. And that synergistic effect is powerful. And that's, that actually kind of goes to one of the types of preppers we were talking about before the show, before we started recording, was the werewolf prepper. This idea of a werewolf prepper. And those are the people that are outside of the community that don't have our trust, that want to come in and steal our stuff and take our stuff. And they're kind of the marauder prepper. And I do not recommend being a marauder prepper or a werewolf prepper.
Well, it's funny because like this got really popular. Like everyone's like, oh no, watch out for werewolf preppers. It's like a new term all of a sudden in June of 2022. I'm like, they're not real preppers. It's wolves in sheep's clothing is really what it is. Someone coming in like, oh, help me. What do we do? How do I learn? And then you show them all the stuff you have and all the stuff you do. And then they're like, okay, check mark, target. Here's where all your vulnerabilities are. And they learn everything about you and then exploit you.
Yeah.
Like we recommend everyone not to tell everybody what they do and how they do it. Like we recommend that you go out and tell people to get prepared and say, oh, I need to get better prepared. I wish I was prepared. But don't go around advertising what you have or what you're doing. And it's funny because I see a lot of people on like TikTok and everywhere else advertising everything they have. And I'll advertise a little bit about what I have, but I'm not going into what I have. I'm going into what I know. And if we can help people get into what they need to know, they're going to be a lot better off. But it also go back to the things of security. Like, what's my security perimeter? What's my security plan? What's my communications plan? What do I use as criteria to determine if I'm going to let this person into that circle of security? And if they don't meet the criteria, don't let them in. Yeah. I have family members, in-laws that I don't let in. It's a safety thing.
Yeah.
We need to be a little wiser wherever we are on the spectrum. But we don't need to freak out, because werewolf preppers, I mean, that's a new buzzword for bad guys.
Yeah.
And there are going to be marauders. There are going to be, they're basically, it's the same as that neighbor 3 houses down, who, when they see you're still eating and they're not, they're going to freak out and try to take what you have if they're at the end of their rope. When someone's at the end of the rope, they do a lot of dumb things.
Oh, yeah.
If we can help curb that now and help them become a prepper now, we've eliminated a threat. And we've increased, and we've increased our ability to get things done in the future, because it's like, oh man, this is a great example. Okay, Clydesdales. How much can a Clydesdale or a draft horse pull?
A ton. I don't know.
Oh, on average, a draft horse can pull a load as heavy as 8,000 pounds.
Dang, that's 4 tons.
That's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
You know, and then I think if you do like 2 draft horses, it goes up to 24,000 pounds.
Wow.
It's not double.
Yeah.
Triple. So what does that tell us about working in a group? Working in a group, you become powerful. Building a community, you become powerful. Doesn't matter if your community is minimalist preppers or bunker doomsday preppers. Build that community, and that is your best prep. I don't think there's anything that's better than a community. I can't think of one.
Yeah. Once you have it goes back to the old airplane analogy. You know, you can't save the guy next to you until you put your mask on first. Once you've saved yourself, so to speak, once you have your food storage, your water storage, your security, you've got your gear, you've got yourself set up, the next best thing is to help the next guy, your next door neighbor, do it, because you're going to survive way exponentially longer by having a team and having a community than you are going to be by yourself. I mean, imagine, you know, if you have people that can stand watch, you know, because you have a whole community now that is going to be able to take care of each other, and you trust people, and you can grow food. Maybe you don't have enough room on your land, but you have a bunch of seeds, but your neighbor has a bunch of room on his property, but no seeds. Well, now together you've got his land and your seeds, and you can both eat. Because you're collaborating together and you're working together. And I think that's a great, it's just a great philosophy to have.
And you've gone from community to team, right? Now you're working together. Now you're because a lot of times we think of a community just the people that live around us. Make them your team. Like, take it a step further. I mean, shoot, I've got a lot of tools, and I've got neighbors that have a lot of tools, and they've got tools I don't have, and I've got tools they don't have. Am I going to go buy all the tools that I don't have that they have? No. We're going to work together, because the ones that I know what they have and they know what I have, we are on the same team.
That's awesome.
And that's what we all need to be building is that community into a team, and know how to work together, know how to communicate with each other, and have our plans in place so that we know how to come together and resolve those issues. Like, we have in our neighborhood door tags that if there's an earthquake, if there's a problem, we put a red tag out on our door. And if we're good, we put a green tag, and the green tag tells us go to the next house. And I'm one of the emergency preparedness guys in the community. So I go out and I have to check 7 houses. And if they have a red tag, I go knock on the door and I go check on them and I make sure they're okay. If there's a medical need, if it's something I have to take care of right then, I take care of it. If it's life-threatening. If it's not life-threatening and it's something that can wait, we kind of triage that and say, okay, here, hang out here for a minute. I got to check on the other houses. I'll be right back. But we break out our radios and communicate to our team, hey, here are the issues that we have. It's a whole community thing. Like, it is fantastic. And it is the most prepared community I've ever lived in because of things like that.
That's so cool.
And it all comes back to aligning with people who have the same goals as you. They don't have to be exactly the same, but if they're in the same realm, if they're somewhere on the spectrum, it's better than some random person that you've never met who isn't on the spectrum of prep.
Yeah.
And if they're not on the spectrum of prep and they want to be on the spectrum of prep, coach them, teach them, direct them to things like Prepper Talk Radio, direct them to our group, our free Facebook group, direct them to the Ready Summit. The Ready Summit is an online educational platform from the experts teaching people how to do the right things. You know, the last one we just had one, and one of the best things in that program was the 5 things that kill food storage. And the other best thing was the emergency communications planning. And it was like, if you want to understand radios and comms, holy cow, David Pruitt did one of the best classes I've ever been to. If you want to understand what's going to kill your food storage, because a lot of people think, oh, I can put it here and it'll be fine. And no, it may not be.
Mm-hmm.
Here are the things that'll kill it. And it was surprising because I'm like, I've been doing this my whole life, and I learned a few things that I was like, wow, that's profound. That's impressive. That I need to go fix. And now I fix it. And I'm now more resilient because I've fixed those issues.
Because you learned from someone else who had more experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I can teach people all day long about bug out bags and emergency planning. That's my wheelhouse. Like I'm like the generic guy. Like I or more the general contractor. Like I have all kinds of stuff I know. But what's more valuable is all kinds of people who are experts that I know.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me much more powerful being experts in my wheelhouse. And it does the same thing for everybody else. So surround yourself with experts. Become an expert in something. Or be the jack of all trades that brings them all together.
Yeah.
And build your community, build your team, and your resilience and your ingenuity will just skyrocket. And you won't be lifting twice as much or building twice as much. You'll be doing 3 times as much, and the effort won't be as big.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be blown away at how easy things get when you have a really good team working together to make things happen.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Scott. This has been a great last 35, 40 minutes of chatting about the spectrum of preppers. So now when somebody says are you on the spectrum? You could say yes, but it's a different spectrum than what they might be thinking. But either way, you're on the spectrum as long as you're a prepper.
Spectrum?
So you're exactly. Now, the whole point of this podcast, I hope that you found, is that no matter where you are on your journey of preparedness, whether you're just getting started and you have a desire in your heart to learn more skills and get back to those foundational principles of self-reliance, or you've been doing this for a long time and you've got 4 or 5 bug out backup locations and you've got a bunker and you've got ammo for days and you got guns for days and you got food storage to feed an army, wherever you are on that spectrum of prepper, there's a place for you, and you need to be ready and be prepared and be, because life is crazy and it's only getting crazier, and we need to be ready for what's happening and what's going on. So, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being a part of our podcast, a part of our journey. Go to our website, join our Facebook group, be a part of our community, connect with us, say hello, say hi. And until the next podcast, you guys be ready, stay ready, and have a great day.